In today's video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a beautiful marbled effect with your buttercream using a very simple technique. Okay, so for this marbling, we are going to use acetate strips. And I had just bought a package of these. It's probably been years ago. A lot of times I'll use it for chocolate wraps, but for today we're going to be working with buttercream. I just wanted to show you, this is, normally you would use one strip, and this is about 4 inches tall. But because we're working with a double barrel cake today, I had to tape 2 strips together so that it would be extra wide. And so I'm not sure if you can really see the tape, but I just took some Scotch tape and taped all around, all along the seam. And so we are going to be flipping it over. I'll go ahead and do that now so that the buttercream is not going to come in contact with the tape. So let's flip it over. Just make sure before you get started that the length is long enough to wrap around the cake. And in this case, because we're using a 6-inch cake, I had to trim down the length a little bit. You just want it to be long enough that it wraps around with a little bit extra to account for the thickness of the buttercream. It's going to change the length that you're going to need just slightly. Okay, so this is a bowl of our fluffy vanilla buttercream, and this recipe does contain butter and shortening, but I also think that just our classic buttercream recipe, which is all butter, would be a good choice too. You want to have at least some butter in your frosting because when it's chilled, it will firm up a lot faster. Okay, so you can see in my bowl I have turquoise coloring gel mixed in, and on one side of the bowl it's a little darker, and then we just get a little bit lighter, and then we have some white. So basically what you want to do is just have a mixture of your shades that you're going to be working with. And I'm just going to go ahead and start applying our buttercream to the acetate. And I have it on parchment paper because I'm just going to take the frosting all the way off the edge. And so we're just going to protect our countertop that way. And actually, it's a good idea to also give yourself enough length on the acetate that you have a little spot that you can hold on to. Okay, so now it's just a matter of adding a mixture of light and dark all the way across. And I have some little touches here and there of just the pure color, some of the gel that wasn't even really mixed in. And it doesn't look like much from this side, but when we flip it over, you'll see more variation in color. Okay, so that's what we have right now. That's what I really like about being able to use acetate for this. I've seen where sometimes people will experiment with using parchment paper, and I think that works okay. The acetate's a little bit more stiff, but also the nice thing about acetate is that you can easily see when you flip over what it would look like once it's applied to the cake. And then you can just make any changes that you need to make if you're not happy with how it looks. Okay, so I've just taken my double barrel cake, which has been crumb coated, out of the freezer. It was in there for about 15 or 20 minutes just to firm up the frosting. And on the top of my frosting, I made it slightly thicker and just kind of did a swirled pattern with my spatula because that part will at least be a little bit exposed later after we wrap the cake. So now I'm just going to pick up my acetate, and I've made it all the way across, and the frosting is about 1/8 of an inch thick. Okay, so now I'm just going to attach this wrap, and I'm starting in the middle. I've tried it the other way where I start just on one side, of the acetate, and it's much more difficult than if you start in the middle. So just smooth one side, and then we'll smooth the other one. Okay, I had to grab my bench scraper. I'm just going to use this to just kind of gently glide over. We want to make sure that the buttercream is really attaching to the surface of the cake. Make it nice and smooth. And then, okay, so I've just taken the cake out of the freezer. It was freezing for about 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes. Just do it until the frosting seems very firm. And now I'm just going to remove our acetate. Oops. Okay, and it looks good. I have a few places, especially right here. I guess it made a little air pocket, so I'm just going to patch that. And because the frosting is really firm, it's very easy to make any corrections that you need to make. And I also have a glass of very hot water. You could also put a metal bench scraper into a pot of very hot water and just kind of go over and smooth out anything that needs to be smoothed out. But I think it has a really pretty and really unique look. Okay, I might grab my bench scraper and we'll meet right back. Okay, so I have a bench scraper that's been dipped in very hot water. And you could also just do this on a smaller scale with just a little spatula. But I'm just really gently going over to smooth out just some little bumps here and there that I have. On the whole, I'm really happy with how everything looks though. I wanted to mention the reason why I think it's the best idea to use acetate, or if you want to experiment with parchment, that's fine too. Rather than trying to apply a marbled look directly to your cake, is that when you apply it directly to the cake, it's really hard to get all of the pretty variations in color and the lines sort of going in all different directions. I did try doing it that way, but I wound up with more of the watercolor look that's popular also, which is more just horizontal lines and color variation, but it didn't look as pretty and as marbled as this does. Another thing I'm going to do is trim off the top. I think if you wanted just a very, very slight amount raised up, I think that would probably be fine. So I wouldn't make it too tall because it just doesn't have that support. Okay, so I'm just going in with my sharp knife. I can tell my frosting is becoming more soft. So it's a good idea to get this step out of the way early. Okay, now I'm just going to add some additional vanilla buttercream to the top. I decided I wanted to just do a simple spiral pattern. So I'm just going to use my little rounded spatula, or if you have a little tapered one, that would be fine too. And just starting in the middle, you'll just apply pressure as you spin it on the turntable. And you just gradually go one row further out with each turn. And if it gets to be too much buildup on your spatula, just scrape it off every now and then. I'm going to take it really close to the edge, but not quite all the way. And then in just a second, we're going to add a border, but first I'm going to freeze it for another 15 minutes to firm it up so that I can more easily transfer it to the pedestal. Okay, so my cake has just come out of the freezer. The frosting is nice and firm, and I've just taken a sharp knife and run it along the bottom of the cake. The cake is on its own cardboard cake circle so that I can more easily move it. I'm just going to move it to the pedestal, or whoops, or if you're using a cake drum, whatever you're using. But I do think it's best to do this step when the buttercream is really firm. Okay. Okay, so now we just need to add our final details. Okay, so now I'm just using a tip 869, which is a French tip, or you can use any large star tip to do kind of a fat border with just a mixture of the colors that we use for our marbling. So just kind of put all the colors into the bag. And then I'll just make my way around. And the distance that you hold your piping tip from the surface of the cake will determine how full your star will be. So just keep that in mind. But I think this will be just a cute little simple border for this design. Okay, so our cake is finished. I love how this came out. The marbled technique is very simple to do, and I think it has a really impressive look. So hope you'll give it a try. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.